In this video, I'm going to cover the difference between safety and compliance. A lot of safety folks in the motor carrier world get these confused that they think that compliance is safety and vice versa, safety is compliance. And that's really not the case. What I have seen from doing years of audits of trucking companies and seeing many different types of companies, including moving companies, is a safety person for the company, whether it's the owner or a dedicated safety person, they spend a lot of time on the compliance piece, making sure that we've got our IFTAs done, our 2290s done, complying with the registration with the DOT and updating our MCS 150 and putting together driver files and maintenance files. And that is all important, but that's not the safety component of a good safety and compliance program. The companies that I have seen over the years do really good on the compliance piece. I'd go in and do an audit and say, let me see some of your driver files. And they had them all with a table of contents, a checklist, and all their documents. And they did really good at that. Not as many did as well on the maintenance files, but again, I would see a good operation and they would have their maintenance files, whether electronic or paper. I could open up a file and I would see, oh, here's the annual inspection for this vehicle, and here is the maintenance in a chronological order. It gives you the sense that you're doing really well in safety. But when you're thinking about your FMCSA basic scores, which you're graded on, that's very little part of that basic score calculation. It's really the safety part. So if you think about your basic scores of unsafe driving, hours of service, vehicle maintenance, drug and alcohol, and driver fitness, a lot of that has to do with the safety portion of your operation. So I'm going to try to give you some tips and tricks about how to operate a good safety program. To start with that, you really need to be able to collect the data from the different things that you're using in your trucking operation. Let's say you have an electronic logging device. It's one thing to log into the electronic logging device and put a driver in or put a new truck in. It's another thing to go into the electronic device every day to the administration dashboard and clear out the unidentified driving events, fix any form and manner issues, make sure your drivers are following the hours of service rules, making sure that they take their 30-minute break properly. Those are the things that help to identify what you need to work on with your safety. The same thing with dash cameras. I always tell a motor carrier that they should always have a forward and driver facing dash cam. I get a lot of pushback from motor carriers and owners and managers and safety folks go, well, if I have a camera facing the driver, I'll lose my drivers. I handle very big operations in the United States that have driver facing cameras, and that's just not the case. You really have to have that discussion when you're hiring the driver to say, look, there's going to be a camera in the truck. It's there to protect you. Should you have an accident or something like that, it's better to know what happened on the date of the accident than us trying to figure it out sometime down the road in a deposition or something like that. The camera is the cheapest safety director you can put in your truck. So going back to what I was saying about the electronic logging device, then you got to go into the dashboard of the camera, and a lot of operations I saw, they would put the camera in and the notification would start coming in, and then they would turn the notifications off, and that was it. It's really not safety. What you should be doing with a dash camera and a driver-facing camera is looking at the driver behavior to try to figure out what needs to be corrected. So if you think of the unsafe driving basic score, you can put a forward-facing camera in there, but you're not going to get all of the things like driver not wearing a seatbelt, driver holding their phone, eating or smoking, things that lead to distracted driving, drowsy driving, which is very dangerous. If you don't have that camera in there to help you guide and coach the driver on what's going on, you're not going to be successful in keeping your unsafe driving basic low. And if that is high, it's telling your insurance company that you are more likely to have an accident, which is under the crash indicator. So, too many speeding events leads to crashes. Too close following distance leads to crashes. Distracted driving leads to crashes. Drowsy driving leads to crashes. If you don't have the device in your truck to monitor that stuff and offer your drivers feedback, coaching, curative training, then you're not going to correct the behavior. And all that's going to happen is your driver's going to get into an accident. You're going to get in a lawsuit. You may lose your insurance, and then that can be very problematic. So, go into the whole safety piece. You're collecting stuff from the electronic logging device, collecting data from the camera. So, you got all this data. From that data, then you need to do the actual safety part. So, coaching drivers. It's one thing to address a driver that was speeding today or yesterday. It's another thing to address speeding that happened 2 weeks ago. It doesn't have the same effect with your drivers. Looking at those events and looking to see what the problem that you're having with your drivers can really help to curtail the driving behavior. I always just focus on driver behavior. Drivers are human, just like us. We get in a car, we hear our phone ding, we want to pick it up, we want to look at it. Oh, I know I'm not supposed to text, but you send a text. Or I know I'm not supposed to be speeding, but I'm running late and I need to speed. Your driver's going to have incidents, but you're really looking for the driver that has repeated incidents, the one that has 30, 40 following distance, the one that's always speeding. If you focus on that, then you can help your drivers get better. So the way I always do the training of drivers is you have to have a good onboarding training program. Tell them the rules and your expectations. That's what onboarding is all about. Talk to them about cameras, talk to them about their ELD, talk to them about pre-trip, talk to them about what to do after an accident. And then there is the regular day-to-day stuff. And this is the hardest part because what I see with motor carriers is you're super busy. You're trying to get your tractors to move from point A to point B. You might not have the time to do what I'm talking about, but you'll get a lot of good dividends, probably save some lives doing this on really trying to get into a rhythm of, okay, in the morning, I'm going to look at the electronic logging device, what drivers are having problems. Then I need to look at the cameras and see what problems I'm having there. And then coach your drivers. You can use curative training, meaning the driver needs a little more than just coaching. They need to watch a following distance video or a speeding video. Disciplinary action as part of safety is writing the driver up, putting them on an action plan. I am a big driver proponent. I don't like to get to that point, but sometimes drivers just don't want to change the behavior. You've got to make it serious enough for them to understand that we're not going to tolerate this. I know we got to get the load from point A to point B, but we really have got to talk about the issues you're having with the behavior. There are different tools like my organization, we use Loom Video, where you can actually take a screen share of a video of a driver not wearing their seatbelt. We can have 3 or 4 incidents where the driver wasn't wearing their seatbelt for the last 2 days. We can do a Loom Video, which does a video of the video, so to speak, and then you can talk over it. And it goes something like this. Driver, I was reviewing our dash camera and you had a couple of speeding events in the last day. It was here and here. As you can see from the miles per hour on the video, you were doing 73 in a 65 mile an hour zone. Driver, I want you to really work on this and watch that speed, not only for your safety, but also for the points against your license. Drivers like to know what's in it for them. So if they get a roadside ticket, a roadside violation, it goes to their driving record also. So I always have a discussion with the driver on how it affects them. That's what effective safety is about. You're going, wow, this is a lot. I don't know how I'm going to ever do this or whatever. Here's what actually happens when you start doing that every day. You coach your drivers, you're doing the curative training. You may have to write up a couple of drivers. You're either going to have the driver move out of the organization and you're going to have to recruit another driver, or the driver is going to fix their behavior. It's very common in the electronic logging device. Like when I talk to a driver about they keep having a 30-minute brake problem. I go, why do you keep having this problem? Well, it was getting up to the 8 hours. My ELD was flashing yellow. I was about to turn red. I tried to pull over into the emergency lane, and I just couldn't get stopped quick enough to take the brake. Now I know the why, and that's a lot of safety is figuring out why. Why are you doing this? So once I go through it with a driver on that, I'll go, if you'll take your 30-minute break somewhere in the 4 to 6 hour mark of your shift, then you don't have to worry about your 30-minute break anymore that day in your 11 hours of driving. And once they have that aha moment, I talk to a lot of drivers. They go, well, you have to wait until 8 hours to take your 30-minute break. No, that is not what the regulation says. You can take your 30-minute break somewhere in the 4 to 6 hour range. I always tell them to go 35 minutes and then they have their break out of the way. Once you get the driver to understand, you've asked the why, you've given them an alternative solution to fix the why, then you really don't see that behavior going forward. Same thing with putting trailer numbers in, bill of ladings and shipment docs. Once the driver understands you're watching it and you touch base with them a couple of times on this, they usually fix the behavior. Unsafe driving, a little different. You may have to do a ride along with somebody that doesn't understand about following distance. We think we know following distance in a commercial vehicle, but I see thousands of videos where the driver is right behind the vehicle in front of them, and I go, oh, they drive that way in their personal car. That's just the way they drive. I have a family member that thinks they can stop their van in 20 feet when the light turns red. It's understanding the why. That's what safety is all about, is understanding, driver, why are you having this behavior problem? And then just talking to them with strategies to fix those problems. I do see in a lot of operations where they have training from some provider and they're going to make the driver watch a video on hours of service or speeding. And I did mention that earlier as curative training. But if you don't do that one-on-one coaching with the drivers, those videos will never be effective. The driver's just going to watch it. How quick can I get through this? Take the little quiz and be done with it. Back to the old behavior. So really concentrate on the why. So to wrap up, compliance is more of IFTA 2290s, got my driver files, doing my drug and alcohol testing right, got my maintenance files. Safety is where you're going to make the biggest impact on reducing any roadside violations, accidents, and things that are going to affect your company and the amount of insurance that you're going to pay. Really focus on safety. When I saw thousands of companies, that is what everyone struggles on, is the safety portion. And I'm going to go through some other videos to help you really drill into what you need to be doing to fix some of that safety problem and give you some tips and tricks on the tools that you can use that don't cost a whole lot of money to really get to the bottom of improving your safety for your organization.